Folks, welcome to the Dad Season Show, episode 15. I'm your host, Denny Carter, and I am connecting my microphone as we speak because I am naturally running late for this recording. I am streaming live on YouTube and the X platform, formerly known, you guessed it, as Twitter, where, by the way, the bots are just raging right now. Just unhinged bot activity. Every single time I post, I get, I don't know, 6 to 8 bot responses. I mean, Elon, he is just completely asleep on the job. I saw a funny post. I thought these posts were over, but a post just last week saying Elon fired, everybody at Twitter and broke nothing. I thought we were past that because we've experienced the worst social media site in history since the hostile takeover, and it's getting worse by the day. So that's been fun. Anyway, I am streaming on that horrible app site. It depends on if you're a Zoomer, it's an app. If you're a millennial, it's a site. And so I am streaming there. You can also find the Dad Season Show on Spotify and iTunes. Like and subscribe. I'm getting a tattoo actually on my lower back this week. I have it scheduled Thursday at 10 a.m. A like and subscribe tattoo. I'll show it. I'll take a picture, post it online when it's ready. But I figure I should commit. I should commit to telling people to like and subscribe. And, what better way to do that than to get it tattooed on your body? I'm going back and forth. It's either lower back or neck. Maybe even face, like on my jawline. Maybe we'll see. It's hard to say. But anyway, listen, today, for the meat of the show's meat, we're going to talk about some analytics around parenting. And by analytics, I just mean polling data. I just mean some numbers that I wanted to discuss with the folks and how it kind of reflects, various differences in the way that dads and moms see parenting and approach it and deal with it, experience it, some would say. And I think it kind of reinforces a lot of the themes and the things we talked about on the Dad Season Show. Disturbingly, there's also some data in there, and this is actually polling from the Pew Research Center that was released in February. So we're gonna look into that. But anyway, there's some data about, are you raising your kids the way that you were raised? And I did not like the responses. I did not like the analytics involved in that response. So we are obviously going to get into that. Wanted to start quickly by telling people, a very important update. And this update, I think you've been waiting for. It's one I've been looking forward to sharing. It's a very important life update. I have watched the new X-Men 97 series on Disney with my son. Yes, with my son. Okay, that's not a bit. That's real. Okay, my kid wanted to watch it because we watched the whole X-Men cartoon series during COVID, I guess, on Disney, and then we were looking forward to this. So we finally watched it. And folks, to borrow a phrase from my Zoomer pals, the new X-Men series whips ass. I don't know really how else to say it. It is way better than you remember. It does not disappoint at all. In fact, it's shockingly good. They did such a good job updating it, giving the characters a little more depth, making it grittier, right? Because they can do that now that it's on a streaming service rather than, on the local Fox 5. That's how we had it. It was on the local Fox 5 at 4:00 in the afternoon. They couldn't have any blood. They couldn't have any real. This thing in the previous iteration of the show, Wolverine could actually never use his claws except for on robots and other machines, right? So we don't have that anymore. We have actually Wolverine using his claws on people, and that was cool. We also have some blood. We have just updates to characters. Cyclops is a badass. They gave Cyclops a testosterone injection. Really cool. I mean, a really cool thing because like growing up, no one wanted to be Cyclops, like in the video games or when you played when you were the X-Men, right? No one wanted to be Cyclops. He's like the corny leader. It's like the Red Ranger, whatever his name, Jason. I think that was his name. Anyway, no one wanted to be the Red. Leonardo from Ninja Turtles. No one wanted to be that guy. That guy's cheesy as hell, right? Everybody wanted to be the funny guy, the bad boy, like someone with some personality. And Cyclops just had no personality in the original. But they gave him some personality in this, and he doesn't take crap from anybody. In fact, he kind of loses it at the end. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. Jean Grey is the same. She passes out after using her power every single time, that's gotta suck. Like, she's like the most powerful mutant in existence, but she can't use her power without immediately fainting like a damsel in distress. I mean, anything. Like she could like move a pencil on a desk and boom, she's out. Jean Grey out. It doesn't matter if she moves a pencil on a desk or moves an ocean with her mind. It's the same result. Bang, you're down. You're passed out. That's tough. I wouldn't like that. Gambit, cool as ever. He was my favorite growing up. Just an extremely, extremely cool character. I know some folks are triggered about him wearing what looked to be a crop top in one of the early episodes of the new season. And it had some pink in the crop top, I believe. But it was really just a shirt that was cut off at the midsection, like looked like with like scissors or something, exposing his rippling 8-pack because they all just are in amazing shape. I mean, they really do. They work out hard. The X-Men work hard and play hard. You have to respect that. But yeah, folks are triggered. Oh, well, Gambit has gone woke. And he's just wearing a short shirt. He's wearing a shirt that I would wear if I had that sort of midsection. If we're being honest, I would absolutely just go ahead and wear a crop top all the time if I had just a massive, just rippling, perfect 8-pack. I'm wearing crop tops all the time. I don't care. 35 degrees in January. Get me the crop top. I'm wearing it. I got to show this. Oh, the world needs to see this. Okay. So Gambit, cool as ever. I'm trying to go through the characters here. The professor is the same. Rogue is really interesting. Rogue's a badass, of course. I don't want to give away what happens here. Storm is as cool as ever, and also super wise. Just a wise person overall. I'm not familiar with the comics, so a lot of the new X-Men stuff really hit me, came out of nowhere. I'm sure that X-Men comic nerds, no offense, I'm a nerd too, but if you're an X-Men comic nerd, you're watching this. Oh yeah, of course, so and so is related to so and so, and this happens and that happens and this horrible. I remember this from comic book number 745 from 1989, something like that. But it was all new to me, and I liked it. I say this while also decrying the infantilization of our culture, which you may say that makes me a hypocrite, and I guess it does. I suppose it does. I don't think it's good that there's nothing new under the sun. I don't think it's good that every year or so we get a major reboot of a series we grew up with. I mean, the reboots are so ubiquitous, I can't even name them all. And of course, the only good reboot was Twin Peaks, because it really wasn't a reboot. The Twin Peaks season 3, it's called The Return for folks who want to check it out. And please, for the love of God, you have to watch the first 2 seasons and the movie Fire Walk with Me if you're going to even attempt to watch season 3. And a lot of you are going to hate it. You're just gonna hate. You're gonna say this is not a good show. This is the worst show ever. That's what you'll say, and I understand that. But the Twin Peaks reboot was different because it actually was like a giant middle finger to nostalgia, to people who tuned in to say, "Oh, I want to experience, watching Twin Peaks again like I did in the early 90s or the mid 90s." Or if you discovered it later, like I started watching Twin Peaks in like 2015. Okay. So, I want more of that. And they didn't give you any of that. None of it. In fact, when they teased you with it and then they said nope, and they yanked it away. And David Lynch, the director and the creator, he said no. He said, "How dare you come here for nostalgia?" He took your face and he pushed it into mud and he said, "No nostalgia for you. You're bad for wanting nostalgia, for desiring what you've already experienced, for trying to relive a happy memory from your youth. It's bad. Shame on you." And of course, David Lynch has disdain for his audience, which I respect so much. I love an artist who has complete disdain for the for the audience, even the hardcore fans, just hatred for the audience. This is great. That makes great. That tends to make great art. Okay, because you will never do fan service. Fan service is the lowest of the low, and that's all we get with these reboots. That's all it is. And that's scraping the bottom of the cultural barrel, man. Wow, it is. It's depressing. They're making a Happy Gilmore reboot. That's sad. I'm sad. I'm sad about it. And this is for someone who really enjoyed Happy Gilmore in the 90s. Okay. I'm not a big Adam Sandler guy, but I loved Happy Gilmore. Okay. I watched it on VHS like 40 times, mostly with my dad and my brother. And we laughed at the stupid jokes over and over. And now they're going to remake it. And everybody in the cast is like 70 years old. That's depressing, man. Gotta stop these reboots. Congress has to act. They just have to. No more reboots ever. If a show's been on, it's over. It's over. We got to stop this. We got to come up with new things to watch and listen to and experience. Maybe there's nothing else to experience. Maybe that's it. Maybe the 80s and the 90s, that was the apex of culture, and then the rest from here on out is just warming that up, just throwing that in the microwave, hitting 45 seconds or 47 seconds if you're crazy, and saying, let's warm up this thing that people used to like. Maybe that's it. I hate it, but it's true. I mean, I think there are more Ghostbusters reboot movies than there were original Ghostbusters. Is this right? Holy, woof. That's rough, man. That's really rough. And the original guys are in it. That made me sad. That made me super sad. I thought that they were trying to get away from the original cast, Bill Murray and those guys. And then I kind of accidentally find out that they're all in it. No. Please just let it die. Oh man. The Zoomers will never know how different Ghostbusters 1 and 2 were. Ghostbusters 1 was basically just a libertarian fever dream. It was super political. And then they drained the politics out of part 2. They said, look, like everybody buys Nikes, like everybody's watching Ghostbusters. We can't have like hardcore libertarian politics being the defining characteristic of this franchise. So no politics in part 2. I think the budget went through the roof, if I remember correctly. And I thought it was a much better movie than part 1. I don't like part 1. You can imagine why. Yes. To the comments, thanks for joining me live. David Filippi says Denny's bio says sad about happy. It's true. It's true. Brett Mason says, I subscribe solely out of disdain. He subscribes to this channel, and you should too, by the way, solely out of hatred for yours truly. Thank you, Brett. We love you more and more. Matt Blair, funniest guy on the internet, and no one talks about it. Matt Blair says Gambit walked out in the middle of Harrison Butker's commencement speech. I actually can confirm that because, again, he was wearing a crop top and has, quote, gone woke. Okay, we're going to get into the show's meat of the show, which is some polling data on parenting that was released a few months ago. Some of which I found very enlightening, if you'll indulge me. So these questions were just centered around what parents think about parenting. And I'll start with this, okay? Roughly as many parents say they are trying to raise their children in a similar way to how they were raised. That's 43% of parents are trying to raise their children in a similar way to how they were raised. And then 44% say they're trying to raise them differently. Fathers are more likely to say they are raising their children in a similar way to how they were raised. That's 47% of fathers say that. 40% of mothers said that. So it is, I think it's revealing in a couple ways. I'm disappointed. You know, we've talked about, especially in the early dad season shows, talked a lot about trying to get away from the authoritarian parenting model that we grew up with, that the kids from the 80s and 90s grew up with, because that parenting model was passed down, you know, from the 50s and 60s from our grandparents. And it's not good. It's not a good one. Even like I said, even when it works, it doesn't work. Okay, it just breeds repression, breeds resentment within the kid. If they're just doing what you say. And again, as a reminder, the authoritarian parenting model is really about is really the one where you say you're going to do what I say because I said it. It's a domineering model. And again, some kids will bend to that. Many kids will bend to that, and you'll think, "Oh, it's working. It's working like it worked on me." And I have suggested that folks listening to the Dad Season Show check out the authoritative parenting model, which is not, it's not a softy model, okay? It's not a pushover model. I'm not telling you to just do what your kids want to do, to never have a backbone. But it is a model that establishes boundaries and rules. And if you calmly enforce those boundaries and rules, you can have a much better, more cordial relationship than with the authoritarian. I'm sorry, I'm burping. You can have a much more cordial relationship than with the authoritarian model, which again can lead to massive clashes in all ways, emotionally, physically. If the kid doesn't appreciate your authoritarian nonsense, okay? So it is disappointing to see that nearly half of parents say, "I'm just doing what my parents did." I was hoping for a much lower number there, maybe like 2 out of 10. But then again, you know, as I talk it out here, and thank you for letting me talk it out. I do think that I would have been in that group. I would have been in that group as of 2, 3 years ago. I probably would have said, if a pollster said, "Are you trying to raise your kids like your parents raised you?" I probably would have said yes. So it is somewhat new to me. It is somewhat new to me. And I guess that ignorance, and again, it's not an insult, but the lack of knowledge of different parenting styles could lead you to say, yeah, like I turned out okay. I'm alive. That's actually the bar, right? The bar for this sort of question is like, did you turn out okay? It's like I lived. All right. My parents raised me and I'm not dead. It worked. All right. That's analytics. You want to know about parenting analytics? Is your kid alive? Bang. You nailed it. I don't, I want something more than that. I think the bar should be raised just slightly higher than are your kids okay physically? Are they on this mortal coil? So I was hoping for something lower than that. I do think it's revealing that more fathers said they're trying to raise their kids like they were raised than the mothers did. And I think that's probably because dads tend, even the modern dad, myself included, it tends not to be quite as involved in child rearing as the mom, because that's really the assigned job, right, of the mom. It's like, okay, like, you had the kid, you're doing the child raising. I'm gonna go earn money for food. But then, of course, you throw in the fact, I'm sorry to those who recently made a commencement speech on this, but you throw in the fact that the moms also go to work full time and they have a double shift. And that's where we are. So I think that but I think it does reflect that dads are like, yeah, hey, my mom and dad did fine. We'll just do that, right? I'll just recall what my dad and mom said to me in these situations, and I'll do the exact same thing. It'll be fine. It's not the best, not the best, I would say. And then the pollsters, for what was it again? For Pew Research, right? They asked parents, about whether parenting is difficult. And here's from the survey. In a nod to the adage about family life that parenting is the hardest job in the world, most parents, 62%, say being a parent has been at least somewhat harder than they expected. I kind of found that funny. With about a quarter, 26%, saying it's been a lot harder. This is especially true of mothers, 30% of whom say being a parent has been a lot harder than they expected. And if you're wondering about dads, only 20% of dads said parenting has been harder, a lot harder, I should say, than expected. All right, first, I just want to address the funny part here. Most parents, 62%, say being a parent has been at least somewhat harder. I mean, what does that mean? Yes, yes, I think being dad has been somewhat more difficult than I thought. I mean, what you're trying to do is you're trying to save face in front of a pollster who's like asking you, like, are you a good parent? Because that's what that question means. Like, are you struggling? And if you say yes, I'm struggling, then the pollster might not think you're a good parent. Probably won't, right? So you say, oh yes, somewhat, yes, a little bit harder, like 15%, maybe even like 12% harder if you break it down analytically. 10%, even 10% harder. No. Those are just people trying to save face. The real responses are the ones saying it's been way more difficult, because nothing can prepare you for this, right? Nothing can prepare you for parenting. You can read the books, you can talk to family members who have had kids, and then it happens, and man, you're in the jungle. Okay, you just hear Axl Rose's voice in your head. I mean, you are in that jungle and you're alone. This comes from someone who had a lot of help from my family, both my side and my wife's side. A lot of help, but you still are alone for a lot of it, and you just were not prepared. You feel like, well, how could I not be prepared? I tried so hard to be prepared. You just can't. You can't be prepared. So that is, I don't really believe those data points. And again, the fact that 30% of mothers said it's been a lot harder compared to 20% of dads who said that, again, is reflective of our roles in this parenting life, right? 8 in 10 dads said, nah, no, it hasn't been that hard. It's been fine. It's been fine. I know my kids' names. I tuck them in at night. I see them once in a while. It's been fine. It's good. And then the moms are like, no, 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 it's actually really hard because I'm doing everything around here and no one's noticing. So that the data makes a lot of sense in that way. In fact, I'm surprised that the gap between those two numbers is not bigger. I do think that this is not an honest answer. I feel like the fact that half of parents didn't say, "Oh, this is a hell of a lot more difficult than I ever imagined." I feel like that kind of tips you off that it's not super honest. Let's go to the comments here, see what you guys think about these polling data results. Diego Lopez, friend of the show, says, it seems right that men would be less likely to admit their own faults and thus be more likely to try and replicate themselves. Yes. Versus trying to raise a quote better version. Yeah. Man, yeah, yes, that's right. For a guy, who just feels super confident in himself, in his role in the world and everything, and secure, I guess, to say like, look, I'm just making a replica here, baby. Like I had a son and he's going to be raised just like me and he'll be just like me when he grows up. The cat's in the cradle and silver spoon, etc., etc., etc. And then of course, like Diego points out, you're failing you're failing to see your shortcomings in that little equation, which I think is typical. I think it's more typical for men than women. So that's a good point, Diego. Thanks. And Diego adds, keeping your kid alive is the QB win stat for parenting. For folks who may not get that little inside baseball jargon, when people are arguing online about a quarterback, the lowest common denominator type argument is just to say, hey, man, this quarterback was 9-3 in his 12 starts. And you say, well, statistically, he was the worst quarterback in the league. Well, 9-3. Well, a win is not a quarterback stat. Okay. Sorry, it's just not. David Phillippe's back in the chat. My parents didn't kill me. What's wrong with bear survival? Yes, exactly. I mean, that is actually the bar. I promise you, I have heard that from like older, like boomer parents who are like, why don't you just raise your kids? Why don't you just do what I did? Because, and this is their reasoning is because you're alive today. That's what we're going. That's it. That's what we're going for. Brett Mason back in the chat. There is no preparation outside of being in a large family for all consuming. Yes, for all consuming of one's attention kids can be. Yes, I think, yes. In other words, it feels like sometimes every waking second of your attention is taken by the children. And they need you to see this and they need you to do that, this and this and that. And that goes back to what we talked about, I think in like episode 2 or 3, which is trying to make an arrangement in your partnership or in your marriage where you're able to give both people a little bit of a break sometimes, where their attention can go elsewhere for just a little while during the day or during, sometime during the week, right? This is a good long-term strategy to avoid total burnout. I was hoping there would be some questions on the polling about the burnout part of parenting, but apparently there was not. All right, Scott says it's harder because some problems your kids don't have easy solutions. No, it seems like none of them do. I don't know. I mean, even when you think it's going to be an easy solution, you will say, well, you can simply do this and this. And let's say, no, it's more complicated than that. And you'll say, well. Nevertheless, I thought this was a freebie. I thought I could get out of this one without getting in the mud. But let's go. Tell me why it's more complicated. And here's the thing. They will tell you. They will tell you exactly why things are more complicated. Diego back in the chat says, maybe some of those parents who say it's easy are just really crappy parents who put in no effort. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying, Diego. I'm desperately trying not to be judgmental here. And if a parent is saying that parenting is, yeah, it's pretty easy, is what I expected, you're probably not trying very hard. I would say you're trying, but you're not trying super hard. And again, this show is not about all my successes and how great I've been as a parent. This show is about how bad I've been as a parent, and I've been there. I've been there. I think early on in parenthood, in the first 2 or 3 years, if someone would ask me, but yeah, it's been it's been good. Like I still do what I do. Still have time for myself. I don't get the big deal. What was the big deal again about having kids? And of course, I wasn't really doing my fair share. Wasn't pulling the proper weight in this arrangement. Matthew in the chat, many of these problems people have would be lessened if they had Ziggy, who is analytics confirmed to be a good boy. Yes, he's referring to Ziggy, my dog, who is his breed is a Cotton de Toulier, the fanciest dog on planet Earth. It's a French breed. It used to be only in Madagascar because the French folks who ruled Madagascar, who colonized Madagascar, had these type of dogs as the official royal dog, and no one else. They passed a law, whatever. They handed down an edict that said nobody else, no normal working person in Madagascar could own a Cotton de Toulier. It was only a royal dog. So what I'm saying is my dog, unfortunately, needs to be canceled. He's problematic. Ziggy's problematic. Let's just be real about it. I've told him, I said, look, you're a good boy. As Matthew says, analytics have confirmed. I've run it through different models, okay, different calculators, and it all comes out right. He is a good boy per the numbers. Still super problematic. Your ancestors, Ziggy, were just nightmares. Let's just be real about it. David says, a good boy, but a horrible cultural artifact. That's true. And Diego says, Ziggy's a good boy, but there's racist imperialist blood in his ancestral pulse. And he doesn't even know it, He doesn't even know it. But but now he does. I told him. As I gave him a treat. I did tell him that. All right, one last thing from this parenting survey I wanted to mention. It says parents are more likely to say they feel judged by family members than by their friends, other parents in their community, or people they interact with online. About half of married or cohabitating parents, 52%, say they feel judged by their spouse or partner for how they parent their children at least some of the time. And 18% say they feel this way all the time or very often. So 2 in 10 basically think that their significant other is judging them all the time with the parenting. That's a tough spot. That's a tough spot because it probably means the parent is not doing the right thing. They're kind of going by their own code, parenting code or whatever. And they're just kind of listlessly just doing what they think they should be doing without any kind of direction or any kind of modeling or anything like that, right? And so maybe they should be judged, but the judgment often leads to, like shutting down. Like, okay, fine, you're judging me, then I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not trying anymore. I'm not even giving the bare minimum, which I'm giving right now. I think it can lead to that. So I've been there. I think it's important to have, enough communication open between two people where you can say, look, I feel like this is a very judgmental situation and it's not helping. Like if you want to say something, you can say it. If you have suggestions, if you want to read a book together or talk to a therapist or whatever about how we can go forward as parents, then let's do that. But let's not sit here and judge each other. And I don't blame, look, I don't blame parents who get judgy about how their partner is working, especially if you come from very different backgrounds, okay? If one parent comes from a super authoritarian background and the other comes from a more like laissez-faire sort of household, right? That's going to be tough to square. It's a real tough. I think there's a lot of like pre-kid work you would need to do in order to work that out, to not be in a bad place where you're saying, wait, what are you doing with the kid? What are you saying? What structures are you setting up? What boundaries are you establishing? That's something that can be and probably should be discussed before the kids reach a certain age. Yeah, of course, when they're infants or whatever, not necessarily. You're just trying to survive in the jungle, like I said earlier. So the judgmental nature of parenting can really come into play, and also be upfront with your relatives. Um, we had some relatives who were not happy about, but when we bought our son some, like, I guess typically girl toys. I mean, not because not because like we wanted to like force it down his throat, but because he wanted it. Like we were in a store. He's very little. He wanted this toy that I forget what it was, a toy like a doll that typically it would be marketed as a girl's toy. We got it for him, and some of the folks in our family were not thrilled about that. You know, so it goes. But we were trying to be upfront and be like, no, we're not going to just get him trucks and tools and things of that nature. He'll be fine. Like, don't worry. It's not indicative of something. Stop like reeling because this young kid is playing with a toy bought in the girls aisle at Target or whatever. It's okay. It'll be fine. I do like when the boomers in the family, when they see a kid abiding by gender norms. Okay, so like if they see a boy, a young male using fake tools, they'll be like, "Ah, I told you, you just got to get those. That's what boys like. That's what they've always liked. That's what they'll continue to like. I told you, but no, you're buying the girls' toys. Why?" Or if the girl is playing, like waitress or something, or like kitchen. Well, I see, I knew it. I knew she was a girly girl. I'm like, yeah, okay, all right. I get your point, but also you're wrong. I'm sorry to report, Boomer, you are wrong. All right, folks, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Well, one second here. We have Brett Mason in the chat. I can never judge my wife's parenting harder than she judges herself. There is so much self-doubt and second guessing with parenting. Yes, there is. I experienced that just today. So much second guessing. Try not to judge. That would be my only suggestion. And this comes from a very judgmental person. Okay, so I do understand how difficult that can be, but try not to. All right, folks. Thank you for joining me for another Dad Season show. I'm not going to be recording next week because it's Memorial Day, and the dads need to rest. As you know, until then, it remains Dad Season.